We've heard of speech therapy, psychotherapy, and physical therapy, but what about bibliotherapy? This concept was new to me and I found it pretty intriguing after stumbling upon it, so I decided to learn a little bit more. It's described as a therapeutic approach employing books and other forms of literature to support a patient's mental health. So I was like, oh hell yeah, let's find me a bibliotherapist, which is a very cool job title, by the way. After Googling bibliotherapy in Brooklyn, I stumbled across this organization, the Center for Fiction, offering a service called A Novel Approach. That's cute. Yeah, I see what they did there. I wasn't quite sure what to expect, but I saw that they had a miniature service via a quiz that was free, so I thought, yeah, sure, why not? It was only 10 questions, and they were things like, I read fiction because. For me, I read fiction because I want to be a fly on the wall, to juicy social interactions and other people's relationships. There was one about my favorite book in English class, which made me sad that there weren't better options. The word in a book review that's most likely to grab my interest: haunting. It's always haunting. And the one thing that keeps me up at night, which is almost always overanalyzing an earlier conversation. At the end, they give you a book prescription, and I got stories that have ghosts contemplating the big questions. Ooh. Distinctly different from a ghost story, these stories that have ghosts are for those who think the answers to life's problems may need more than one plane to discover. With perhaps some frights but never quite reaching horror, people who live in a peaceful coexistence with the spirit world will feel right at home with these tomes. Now, I could tell you what books I got prescribed, but I'd rather show you because I actually went to the Center for Fiction last week and picked up all of their recommendations. That place is heaven in bookshop form. If you live in New York, or if you're planning a visit, I'd suggest carving out time to pop over to downtown Brooklyn to see the space. And I'd also recommend checking out the attached cafe while you're there too. I was recommended 6 books, so let's talk about those. The first book is The City of Good Death by Priyanka Champaneri. This is one of the longer ones at 427 pages. As the dutiful manager of a death hostel in India's holy city of Benares, Pranesh tends to dying pilgrims who hope to be released from the cycle of reincarnation. But when a dead man identical to the manager shows up in the river and an unwelcome guest takes up residence in the hostel, Pramesh is forced to confront his own ideas about death, rebirth, and redemption. Priyanka Champaneri's transcendent debut, The City of Good Death, is an unforgettable tale of family, ghosts, memory, ritual, and the ways we honor the living and the dead. It's interesting that the synopsis calls this holy city Benares because in the book it's exclusively referred to as Kashi, which is its ancient name. You may have heard it being referred to as Varanasi, which is its modern name, but they're all referring to the same place, maybe just under different contexts or time periods. So the book is primarily set in a death hostel. It's a place where people can bring family members on the verge of dying in an effort to have them die in the holiest city in the world according to Hinduism. Champaneri talks about how it was hard for her to write this because although she is Indian, she was born and raised in the United States, and even her parents aren't from that part of India. She said she felt conflicted writing about a place that was so iconic and important in that culture, and how she felt like she was appropriating since she was somewhat removed from it. Though she didn't grow up in India, she had been steeped in Hinduism her entire life, and she was able to combine that with her travels to the country, in addition to these characters that kept reappearing to her without her really trying or putting forth much effort. And all of that led to her writing this book. And I understand this fear she may have had of offending people because she felt like an outsider, but I almost see this as her being a cultural emissary for Kashi and the concept of death hotels because I didn't know about either before hearing about this book. The next book is Build Your House Around My Body by Violet Cooper-Smith. The jacket doesn't do a great job, in my opinion, of describing what this book is about, aside from it being part puzzle, part revenge, and part ghost story. And from my research online, it sounds like it's hard to summarize succinctly. The book opens up with the disappearance of a young American woman named Winnie, who is half white and half Vietnamese. She's living in Saigon, and this serves as the trunk of the novel with many branches reaching out from it. The story shifts back and forth between different time periods and places, interweaving the stories of her boyfriend and his brother, a ghost extermination crew from the 1980s, and a pair of French settlers in the 1940s, just to name a few. There's both realistic and supernatural elements present, and the book explores themes of love, hate, family legacy, and folklore. In addition to all that, there's also an examination of the reverberating effects of French colonialism in Vietnam and the underlying dilemma of people who don't fit neatly into one single racial identity. This novel also doesn't fit neatly into one single genre. It touches on historical fiction, mystery, and fantasy. Paris is a Party, Paris is a Ghost is a short novel by David Hoon Kim following the protagonist named Henrik, whose girlfriend Fumiko dies early in the novel. That's not a spoiler, it's listed in the synopsis. The book is divided into 3 parts: Fumiko, Before Fumiko, and After Fumiko. It's said that this is best read as a trilogy of novellas that take place in different periods of Henrik's life, although it's billed as a novel. It explores things like our desire for connection, loss and healing, and navigating a world as you struggle to find your identity. Henrik is haunted by the ghost of Fumiko in the book, but is stated to be in many ways a ghost himself. He lives a transient life, he doesn't quite fit in anywhere, and he has difficulties connecting with people. Fourth on the list is a book with deckle edges, which are the bane of my existence, and that is The Sentence by Louise Erdrich. The sentence asks, what do we owe to the living, to the dead, to the reader, and to the book? A small independent bookstore in Minneapolis is haunted from November 2019 to November 2020 by the store's most annoying customer. Flora dies on All Souls Day, but she simply won't leave the store. Tuki, who has landed a job of selling books after years of incarceration that she survived by reading with murderous attention, must solve the mystery of this haunting while at the same time trying to understand all that occurs in Minneapolis during a year of grief, astonishment, isolation, and furious reckoning. This book celebrates books and reading and literature, and it even has a list of Tuki's favorite books at the end. Reviewers say that this is the perfect epitome of life in 2020 and has been on my TBR basically since it was released, and I'm excited to read it soonish. This next book I'm super excited about because it just won the Women's Prize for Fiction, and that is The Book of Form and Emptiness by Ruth Ozerki. 1 year after the death of his beloved musician father, 13-year-old Benny O begins to hear voices. The voices belong to the things in the house: a sneaker, a broken Christmas ornament, and while Benny doesn't understand what these things are saying, he can sense their emotional tone. When his mother develops a hoarding problem, the voices grow more clamorous. At first, Benny tries to ignore them, but soon the voices follow him outside the house, driving him to seek refuge in a public library, where objects are well behaved and know how to speak in whispers. There, he discovers a strange new world. He falls in love with a mesmerizing street artist who uses the library as her performance space. He meets a homeless philosopher poet who encourages him to ask important questions and find his own voice amongst the many. And he meets his very own book, a talking thing, who narrates Benny's life and teaches him to listen to the things that truly matter. This sounds so good. I read in an interview with her where she said that as a child she related to objects as though they were semi-sentient, and even now she thinks about the stories that things could tell if only they could speak. Ozerki is not only a novelist but a filmmaker, and to add to that, she's a Zen Buddhist priest. Both of the novels that she's published since being ordained in 2010, this one, The Book of Form and Emptiness, and A Tale for the Time Being, combined Zen parables and postmodernist metafiction. I'm really intrigued by metafiction and want to read more of it, so if you have recs, drop them down in the comments. Last on the list is The Upstairs House by Julia Fine. There's a mad woman upstairs and only Megan can see her. Ravaged and sore from giving birth to her first child, Megan is raising her newborn largely alone while her husband travels for work. Physically exhausted and mentally drained, she also is racked with guilt over her unfinished dissertation, a thesis on mid-century children's literature. Enter a new upstairs neighbor, long dead quixotic children's book writer Margaret Wise Brown, author of the beloved classic Goodnight Moon, whose existence no one else will acknowledge. Margaret has unfinished business with her former lover, the once famous socialite and actress Michael Strange, and is determined to draw Megan into the fray. As Michael joins the haunting, Megan finds herself caught in the wake of a power struggle, and until she can find a way to quiet these spirits, she and her newborn daughter are in terrible danger. This book uses postpartum depression as a metaphor for the main character Megan's relationship to her body and her mind. I read that people who don't even have children were drawn into the story and her feelings and her fears because The book is written in such a visceral and intense way. The details about the relationship between Margaret Wise Brown and Michael Strange are true too. The pair were in a partnership for about 10 years, with Strange being nearly 20 years older than Brown. So the author really did her research while writing this book. More than half the books prescribed to me are about 400 pages or more. Like, don't these people know that I have a day job and a fear of thick books? Yet I'm really excited to read these, so let me know down in the comments which of these you think I should start with. I love that this is 6 stories that features ghosts as a means to get us to further examine things like identity, connection, endings and beginnings via death and birth, race relations, consumerism, basically the things and the people and the events that shape who we are and how we see and move through the world. These are the types of books that allow us to expand outside of ourselves, and I'm ready for more of that. Are you?